The religious love to claim that we're all just looking for something, and usually that's just shorthand for their imaginary friends. Well, everybody wants God. Nope, sorry, not interested. At least not unless you can prove that God is real in some objective way. And they aren't even trying to do that. Instead, they do what we're going to look at today. Because once you see the stupidity, it's really hard to go back. This time out, we're going to watch another IMBeggar video, which, let's be honest, they're all just somebody else's content. This time, it's Fulton Sheen, a Catholic bishop from the 1950s, where he was one of the early TV preachers. However, as I think we're going to see, that didn't make him any better than the con men that we have today. These people are not dealing with reality. They don't want to. It'll just get in the way of their gravy train. Yet it's very, very easy to see through all the theological BS if you actually care to try. The religious, well, they rarely do, which is why they remain religious. We, however, we're going to try. So let's see how far we get.
Just suppose you could take out your own heart and put it into your hand as a kind of crucible.
Why in the world would I want to do that? Of course, I just did a whole video on a theist claiming that the human heart proved God a couple of weeks ago, so we've already established just how fragile the heart actually is. I don't think I'd want to go digging it out of my chest, would you? I mean, that kind of sounds like something out of Temple of Doom, doesn't it? I don't think things went well for the guy who had his heart ripped out, so I think I'm going to pass. Thanks for asking anyhow.
To distill out of your heart its inmost cravings, yearnings, and aspirations, what would you find them to be?
Nothing, because my heart doesn't crave anything. Maybe blood, but it really doesn't have any desires, so not even that. Now, I understand what he's saying, it's just poetic, but I also run into a lot of people who honestly think that your feelings are in your heart. And those people are just idiots. Your feelings are in your head, and they are entirely electrochemical in nature. Your heart exists to pump blood. That's it. Anyone who thinks otherwise, any adults anyhow, those people probably have some severe mental problems, or at the very least some educational shortfalls. Those are not people that I really want to spend any of my time with. So with that out of the way, let's see what he is really after, because I have a feeling it's not any smarter than what he actually said.
What do you want most?
Well, that's kind of a hard question to answer because I want lots of things. Most of the things that I want, they're non-physical. I mean, most of the physical stuff I want in the world I've already got. In fact, recently my wife and I were sitting there talking, and I was going, well, is there anything else around the house that we need to replace? Anything that we need? And she says, nope, don't need a thing. I mean, 2 weeks ago, we just bought a new refrigerator and a new dishwasher because, we wanted to. So it's not like I need stuff. I'm not attached to money and crap. In fact, when we bought this house 7 years ago now, I made it a point to declutter and get rid of all the junk that we just had laying around. And I still don't want any of the junk. It's just more stuff that I have to take care of, and I've got no time for that. People will say, we'll buy houses and cars. But I don't need any more houses and cars. I have all of that. Right now, my youngest daughter, she's moving across the country, and that leaves us with an empty nest. That will leave 5 cars in the driveway for just my wife and I. Now, I've just got to get rid of a couple. I mean, I have a truck, which is just for moving stuff. That's an extra car. But I have no need for all of these extra cars that are just piling up. What I would like, though, would be more smart people. And I don't mean just book smart, I mean actually intelligent, rational, critical thinking adults who can think more than feel. I'd like dumb people to just go the hell away. Trust me, if we could just cut the worldwide population in half, just by getting rid of all the real idiots, that would probably make me happy. Sadly, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
First, life.
I've already got life. But here's the thing, I'm not inordinately attached to life either. I mean, I know that life is fleeting. Enjoy it while you're here because sooner or later, it's going to be gone. I really do not understand the people who whine and cry whenever somebody dies. And I don't mean close family members, I mean like celebrities they've never met. People who haven't done anything useful in 25 years. Now, as I'm writing this, just to give you some idea of how far ahead this gets, but William Friedkin, the guy who directed The Exorcist, he died. Okay, so what? I mean, he was old, and the one thing that old people are sure to do is drop dead. I don't care. I didn't know the guy, liked some of his movies, didn't care though. Hell, I wasn't even aware he was still kicking. So no, I just don't care. Didn't know the guy, had no interest in him, that's it. Whatever. And I think it's just people are terrified of dying who have a very, very unhealthy way of looking at life. And I think those people need to just knock it off.
Honor, ambition, power, what good are these without life? And at night we put out our hand instinctively in the dark, ready to lose that member and lose that which we treasure most, our life.
I don't. I mean, I enjoy life most of the time. There comes a time when being alive sort of stops being fun, when you're just in pain most of the time, when it's hard to do a lot of things for yourself, and when you just want to go to sleep and not wake up again. It's why I'm such a strong proponent of voluntary suicide. If you don't want to be alive anymore for any reason, then don't. Just end it. It's your problem, not mine. It's nobody's business but yours. In fact, it's the absurd fear of death that a lot of people have that force them to keep everybody else around them alive, often against their will, because they'd feel really, really bad if anybody ever died. And for the religious, that is just silly because they believe that people are supposed to want to go to heaven. But nobody fights to stay alive more than a theist does. It's why the church outlawed suicide. Because they need those suckers to stick around and give them their money.
Then as we continue, we find there's something else we want in life, and that is truth.
Okay, I'll give you that one. I want truth, at least a reasonable version thereof. There are some things that I understand I will never know, and I'm actually fine with that. I can only know what I can actually know, and all the wishes and dreams in the world won't change that. Because here's the thing, the only truth that actually matters is the actual truth. Not what you wish was true, not what you have faith in, actual, demonstrable, verifiable truth. And you either have that or you don't. How that makes you feel is entirely irrelevant. You being sad, not having the truth, is not a license to just make something up because it fills in the empty space in your head. That's pretty much what religion has done since day one. It's a means of comforting the faithful, and whether they like it or not, the truth isn't always comforting. Reality can be downright terrifying. Saying, well, I'd rather believe this thing over here than have to deal with that truth over there. That is utterly irrelevant. Truth is truth. Actual truth is actual truth. The most comforting lie in the world is still a lie. And the most uncomfortable truth that ever existed will always be the truth. Your fee-fees just don't matter. Grow the hell up.
One of the first questions we asked coming into the world was the question, why? We tore apart our toys to find out what makes the wheels go round.
If we're doing it right, yes. However, as I said, there are some questions that we don't have credible answers to, at least not yet. If you're going to be at all rational about it, you have to admit that the things that you don't know, you don't know. Yet that's pretty much all religion does, right? In the absence of real, emotionally comforting answers, it just makes stuff up. People just want to believe. But that doesn't make any of it true, and that's the sign of the mature mind, knowing the difference between wanting to believe and having any good reason to think that these claims are actually true. It's caring about the truth, the actual truth. It's caring so much about the truth that you will set aside your own feelings just to get to it, or at least recognize that you simply can't reach it at the moment and set aside your immediate gratification because you actually care if what you allow into your head is factually true. Mostly, I think skeptics do. Mostly, the religious just don't.
And then later on, we tear apart the very wheels of the universe to find out what makes its wheels go round. We are bent on knowing causes. That is why we hate to have secrets kept from us. We were made to know.
No, that's just an assertion based on wishful thinking. So far as we have any actual evidence, we weren't made at all. That's just something that the overly emotional really wish was true because it fulfills an emotional need. But that doesn't make it true though, does it? What we see so often are the religious who will tell us, well, you want to find the truth, and let me tell you what it is. Except they can demonstrate no way that they have actually come to a rational conclusion. They just really want it to be true. But that doesn't mean a damn thing.
And there's still something else we want besides life and truth. We want love.
Maybe, but that doesn't mean that everybody gets it. And that's just life. Some people, whether anybody likes it or not, they're just not worthy of love. And I don't mean your parents or anybody like that. People who are pretty much programmed by biology to care about you. I mean, once you're an adult, you might really want to be loved, but there's an awful lot of real assholes out there who just don't qualify, who just treat people like crap, who just are, I don't want to say destined, but destined to be alone. They have earned being hated. The lack of love is their own fault. Now, does that mean they can't change their ways and find somebody? Well, no, of course not. But that takes effort, and a lot of people have no interest in that. I'm just trying to imagine how he's going to turn all of this to his imaginary friend, and it really seems pretty clear. Well, you want love, and my invisible sky spook loves you. Something like that. I don't know. Let's see if I'm right.
Every child instinctively presses itself to its mother's breast in token of affection. Goes to its mother to have its play wounds bound. Then later on seeks a companion, young likened to himself, to whom he can unpack his heart with words.
Yeah, but guess what? As you get older, you need a lot less of that. That's where you find the people who really matter in your life, the ones that you can talk to who will actually care when you do. I think it takes a lifetime for people to really figure out the world around them, and sadly, a lot of people never really do. They just really want to believe, but as we all know, wanting to believe doesn't actually mean anything. Truth is truth only when it can be demonstrated objectively to be true. And sadly, a lot of people, especially among the religious, they just can't get that through their heads.
One who measures up to that beautiful definition of a friend. One in whose presence you can keep silence. And so the quest for love continues from the cradle to the grave.
So, the religious just make up imaginary friends because they just aren't that good at finding them on their own. I mean, really, would you be friends with a lot of these people? I know I wouldn't. The more fundamentalist or evangelical a Christian is, the less I want anything at all to do with them. I have zero interest in being around fanatics of any kind, but especially among the religious. It's why so many of these people end up on this channel, because they are absolutely volunteering to be made fun of with their religious stupidity. People really need to stop being dumb, because wouldn't that be nice?
Yet, though we want these things, do we find them here? Do we find life here in its fullness?
Yep. But I've never found anything that I actually wanted out of life that I just couldn't get here. Of course, I have realistic expectations, and sadly, a lot of people do not. They want things that are simply absurd. Yet that's really the hallmark of the religious, isn't it? They're looking for perfection, which isn't really a thing. They want to live in a magical happy land, which isn't real, and when they whine and complain that they just aren't getting what they want, because it's stupid, they just invent irrational stories in their heads and pretend, well, those things just have to be true because they make them happy. Honestly, I think the problem with most theists is one of expectations. They aren't living in the same reality with the rest of us. Maybe they ought to do something about that.
Certainly not. Each tick of the clock brings us closer to the grave. Our hearts are but muffled drums beating a funeral march to the grave.
Yep. Welcome to the real world. I mean, just listen to these people. But I'm not getting what I want. Okay. Well, maybe what you want is stupid. Maybe what you want is out of a fantasy book. Because here's the reality. Everybody dies. You don't have to like it, but it's still true. You are going to die. I'm going to die. Everybody is going to die. Eventually, the entire universe is going to die. So what? Whether you like it or not doesn't change anything. Playing make-believe in your head doesn't change anything. This is why these people have so many problems. They're just stupid. Knock it off.
From hour to hour we ripe and ripe. From hour to hour we rot and rot. Life is not here, nor truth in all of its fullness.
Truth is truth. You don't have to like the truth, but it remains true nonetheless. Again, this is just unrealistic expectations from the terminally delusional. But I don't like it. Okay. Well, that and $14 will get you a latte at Starbucks, but that's about it. What you like doesn't mean anything. This is where they constantly go wrong. Your feelings are irrelevant. Deal with it. The world doesn't change because your pathetic fifis are hurt. You have to change to fit the world in which you demonstrably live. It doesn't work the other way around. This is where they constantly have problems because they do not understand their place in reality. They are not in charge. They are not at the top. It's not even close. Time to grow the hell up and deal with it. Try.
As a matter of fact, the more we study, the less we know, because we see new avenues of knowledge down which we might travel for a lifetime.
That's not really how this works either. The more that we learn, the more that we know, and the more that we realize just how much more there is to know beyond what we currently do. Your ignorance is not something for you to be proud of. Because here's the real problem. They are starting with wholly unjustified beliefs. They want to feel like they're perfect. It's all just childish ego. Oh, the world doesn't look perfect, so they just have to invent a reason why it doesn't look perfect. It's a sin against an undemonstrated imaginary man in the sky. Well, that's why humans aren't perfect. No, the reason that humans aren't perfect is because humans aren't perfect. We never were, and we never will be. We're just us. We are all that we ever will be. Learn the reality and move the hell on.
I wish I knew now just 1/10,000,000th as much as I thought I knew the night I was graduated from high school.
That just means that you were stupid then. Now, that's not a bad thing because a lot of people are pretty stupid in high school. That's why you're there. But hopefully you're better now. The religious just don't like that, though. It hurts their precious little fifis to think that they aren't super geniuses. But the reality is, nobody knows that much in the grand scheme of things. So what? Big deal. We do the best that we can do with what we demonstrably have. We learn as much as we can reasonably learn. We make mistakes. We try to fix them. That's kind of the way the world works. Come on back when you figured that out.
So truth is not here, and love is not here either in its fullness, because when love does remain fine and noble, the day must come when the last embrace is passed from friend to friend.
Yep, because everyone dies. Stop whining about it. There is no perfection. There is no eternity. That the religious really want these things to exist, that doesn't mean anything. That's why they make up imaginary friends to bow down and kiss their asses. They are looking for things that simply aren't real. They are trying to live in a world that simply doesn't exist. This is where they're making the mistakes. It's not our fault that they're screwed up, it's theirs. It's their responsibility to do something about it. Sadly, it's pretty obvious they just don't wanna.
And the last cake is crumbled at life's great feast. So here we are, looking for life and truth and love and not finding it.
I'm finding it, but I'm not looking for the bizarre nonsense that you are. I've got life. I've got truth. I've got love. What the hell is wrong with you? Oh, right, you're unrealistic. You're religious. I forgot. And this is something I wanted to bring up, because this is something I get complaints about all the time. Well, you're just too mean to the religious. No, I'm not. I am not mean. Existence doesn't exist to make you happy. That's the whole point. We can't just sit there and coddle these morons and say, well, it's okay. It'll all be okay. No, it won't. It is what it is. You have to learn to deal with it. You have to learn to live in the real world. You can't just sit there and play make-believe all the time because you're sad. This is the only way you can get through to these people. And I agree, you're not going to get through to a lot of them, because a lot of them are just out of their ever-loving fucking minds. But I don't see hugging them and singing Kumbaya as being a logical solution to the problems that they have in their heads. They need a kick in the head. Sorry, I'm going to be that boot.
Are we destined to live an absurd life?
Only if you're religious, because the rest of us are doing just fine with the actual reality that we live in. We understand that we just have to deal with what is, not what we desperately wish was. Maybe it's time you got on board with that.
Would we ever have eyes unless there was something to see?
We wouldn't have evolved eyes unless there was some use for them, if they didn't bring some benefit. They wouldn't have stuck around, and they wouldn't have improved over millions of successive generations to what we have today. Oh, that wasn't a serious question, was it? It's really easy to make that mistake when responding to the religious.
These are fractions. There ought to be a whole somewhere.
No, these are the whole. You just want something more than there is. This is a problem on your part, not ours. You are the one with the unrealistic expectations. You are the one with the pie-in-the-sky beliefs. You are the one who cannot be satisfied with reality. That's not us, that's you. Don't be stupid. Yet that's really why these people are the way that they are. They don't have any grasp on reality, and they don't want one. They just really want to believe, but they want to believe irrational things. And this is why we laugh at them, because they really are that stupid.
And so we ask ourselves, very much like asking now, what's the source of light in this room?
At the moment, the sun, and I guess in a couple of hours, light bulbs. Are you telling me that you can't answer these very simple questions? Are you really that stupid? Oh, yeah, don't answer that. I think we already know.
Certainly not here under the microphone, because their light is mingled with shadow. And under chairs, their light is mingled with darkness. If we are to find the source of light, we must go out to something that is pure light.
There is no pure light. Pure light isn't even a thing. Well, I guess unless you're talking about Isaac Newton, who proposed that pure light is comprised of a single wavelength that cannot be broken down into the various colors of hues. But that, of course, is not what this guy is talking about, because he's got the sun, and the sun is anything but pure light. So, as is no surprise, he's just making a fool of himself. Because what else is new?
And if we wish to find the source of the life and the truth and the love that is in this world, we must go out to a life that is not mingled with the shadow death, out to a truth that is not mingled with the shadow error, out to a love that is not mingled with the shadow hate or satiety. We must go out to pure life, pure truth, pure love.
Except that isn't real. It doesn't demonstrably exist anywhere but in your head. This is the problem that we face when talking to the religious. They don't actually want to live in the same world that we do. It doesn't matter what you want to be true. It matters what is actually true. Making up an imaginary fantasy land in your head doesn't actually mean anything. What you wish was true, that doesn't mean anything. These are people with severe developmental problems. They have never figured out actual reality. Seriously, have a conversation with these people about the actual state of reality sometime. These people can't handle it. They will literally break down and cry. I have seen people like that who do it. In fact, I just had a conversation with a Muslim on a recent video where they were trying to say that Islam knew about the expansion of the universe 1400 years ago. Okay, cool. Then why did nobody on the planet, including the Muslims, say anything about it until 1929 when Edwin Hubble figured out that the universe was expanding? You know, you'd think that the Muslims would be the world's leading scientific experts if all of this advanced science is in their book. But nope, they're just a bunch of ignorant goat herders, just like everybody else in the region at the time. The world that we actually see is not what we would expect to see if any of these ridiculous claims were actually true. Yet, these people can't get out of their own heads and into the real world. Because they're idiots. No surprise there.
And that is the definition of God.
Says who? Just making up a definition, that doesn't mean anything. But I really want it to be true. So what? It's exactly why these videos are so ludicrously laughable. You can do the exact same thing. Just make something up in your head. But I really want invisible, intangible, universe-creating pixies to be real. Big deal. This is where the religious show themselves to be immature children. It doesn't matter what you want to be true. It matters only what is actually true. Your wishes, your dreams, and your heartfelt desires are entirely irrelevant. If God isn't real, then God isn't real, and you have done nothing at all to demonstrate that this God concept in your head has any relevance to reality. These people don't even try.
In other words, that's what we want. That's what we were made for.
Oh, look, another unsupported assertion. Big surprise there. But this would really make me happy. Okay, so what? All you are doing is proving just how many problems they have. Mature, rational adults do not run around whining and crying because they aren't getting a pony for Christmas. They live in the real world, and the religious don't. Why? Because reality terrifies them. They'd rather hide under the covers of their religious beliefs, afraid that there's a monster under the bed, than to simply look for themselves and deal with what they find. This crap just isn't real. It's all a figment of their overactive imaginations. No, we've just started being realistic about it, or at least some of us have. That's the problem, though. You're not. You'd rather be a 5-year-old throwing childish temper tantrums because you're not getting your way than be a rational, mature adult caring about the world in which you actually live. The religious, at least by and large, they don't do that. They can't. They lack the internal maturity to handle it. They'd much rather live in a magical happy land in their heads than to just deal with the truth. And I can't tell you how absolutely pathetic that actually is. After that, it just credits Fulton Sheen and then it's just advertising, so we're going to skip over that. I mean, honestly, how can you watch something like this and not understand what is actually going on? Apparently, the religious can't do that. They will look at this and they'll think it's inspiring. I just think it's pathetic. It is people who cannot deal with the real world. This is something that you will find not only true of the religious, but of a lot of people out there these days, because these people are all over the place. There are a lot of people in the political realm that are very prone to this kind of thing. They just can't handle what's going on, so they just make up a comforting story in their heads and insist, well, that's what's real, even though it isn't. This is, sadly, how a lot of the modern world works. Fifis over facts, emotions over evidence. It's just painfully stupid, but that happens to be the world that we live in. Maybe, just maybe, hear me out here, but maybe it's time we did something about it. Maybe it's time we stopped coddling these idiots' feelings. Maybe it's time we started to criticize the irrationality. Maybe it might help. Who's with me?